our thoughts on Avengers Age of Ultron, the 7 weirdest religions, and the impact Scientology played on the divorce of Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. All on episode 28 of the Culture and Arts Podcast.
Welcome to episode 28 of the Culture and Arts Podcast. We are back in our lovely movie theater-esque studios. I am Joe Ruiz, as always, and I am with my good buddy, Jason Moreau. Jason,
good to see you.
Good morning.
I do notice somebody had a party in here recently because there's some pizza boxes back there.
And they didn't save any for us.
No.
Those bastards.
Well, even if they did, since it's on the trash, I think I'd pass anyway. But
Yeah. Hey, desperate times call for desperate measures. It just depends on how hungry you are. But you know what I did yesterday?
What's that?
Went and saw the Avengers.
Yeah.
Age of Ultron. And I know you saw it like on opening day.
Yeah, because I was actually looking for show times, thinking it was going to start like at midnight Friday morning.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually some Thursday night showings at like 7 o'clock, so I hit one of those up.
So they don't even wait for midnight anymore on these big opening.
No.
They just know how many people are going to be pounding on the doors, and they figure they make it easier on themselves.
Yeah, because it was sold out, and
Where'd you go see it?
I actually go to the theater in Niles.
Okay,
because it's significantly cheaper there.
That's where I went to.
So much so, I'm almost afraid to mention it. But
I know it's like you want it to be this really well kept secret,
right?
So I went there for the first time in forever. Like I don't even know when the last time I went to that theater was.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to take my family, which was a big mistake. Big mistake. And, it was one of those things where it's like, when my son saw the previews to the Avengers Age of Ultron, he said, "Daddy, I want to see that. I want to see that." Okay, buddy, I'll take you to see it when it comes out. And so I felt this responsibility as a dad to take my kid to see this movie. And first, I went on the parental review websites. I had to see, what is it rated PG-13 for? Are there stuff that I think will bother the kid? And at the end of the day, it was really just the stylized violence of the superhero universe. You're going to get that in any superhero movie or cartoon.
Right.
And, so I kind of weighed that out, and I was like, well, he's seen the Avengers 1. Mm-hmm. Based on what I'm reading, this can't be any worse than Avengers 1.
Right.
Okay. So what I didn't really think would happen is exactly what happened is when I took him, and I took my wife and daughter also, my son had zero attention span. Mm-hmm. And so he's just crawling around in the seats, and at one point he was doing a headstand on one of the seats. He kept asking questions like really loud, and I was like, oh God, I'm that parent that everybody else in the movie theater is really mad at. And it's a packed movie theater. So I'm like, maybe if I put some candy and stuff in front of these kids, they'll be quiet. Mm-hmm. So I missed 5 minutes of the movie to run out and get concessions. Now I was impressed at the concession costs.
Yes.
At this theater, because you never go to a movie theater nowadays and spend any less than $10 on whatever you're getting. And so I go out there and I order a small bag of popcorn, which a small bag of popcorn is like feeds 4.
Right.
And then I got a king size bag of Skittles, and I expect $7-8. Mm-hmm. Ended up being $3 even. Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm getting the Skittles too. And I handed them over to the woman. She goes, no, I already got those. It's $3 even with the Skittles and the popcorn. And I was like, are you serious? And I had this like part of me that was like, I'm going to get like 5 more things at these prices.
Right.
It's ridiculous. And I ended up getting a bottle of water too, which cost $1. But I took them in there, and it did for like 15, 20 minutes. It calmed them down. Uh-huh. And then by the time they had ripped through the candy and popcorn and everything, they were right back to, Cammie, my daughter's uncomfortable, and she's shaking around in her seat. And the seats at that movie theater are kind of like, they're the kind of seats where they're automatically raised up, they're lifted,
yes.
And you have to sit down and your weight holds them down.
Right.
But for my son, who's like 30 pounds or whatever, like I had to sit there and physically push down on his seat so that he didn't get folded up in his chair. And so there were several points in the movie. He had to go to the bathroom once, and then all of like the kind of little reprimands. And there was no way that I was fully focused on the movie, so I have to go back and rewatch it because, I didn't want to just like illegally download it or something because like I feel like those are the movies. It's the movies that you want to see sequels. as many as they can offer you.
Yes.
And you want to pump money into those, so that they're seeing the return on investment that they're putting into making it. And so I'm glad I supported the studio in making that film, but I'm going to have to watch it again somehow, even if that means I got to pay to see it again, because there were just a lot of dad moments that had me paused and they took my attention away.
I'm actually glad you mentioned the dad moments because it actually brings two things to mind. One is I have a lot of people ask me if I see a movie if it's kid friendly, and I have to say it's really a difficult question for me to answer because I don't know what you think is appropriate for your kid.
Right.
I don't have any kids myself.
Yeah.
So and I kind of felt like if you're okay having your kids watch, Coulson get stabbed through the chest in the first Avengers,
right?
There's probably nothing in the second one that you'd really have an issue with. And the other thing is, my nephew has been begging me to take him to see this. And I knew going on a school night probably wouldn't work keeping him out that late.
Yeah.
But, he's also got autism, so there's also some challenges presented with that. And
I change up in the routine.
Yeah, I just kind of understand, I just thought it was interesting that you mentioned, your kids focusing through the movie because, but.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I probably won't take them to a movie again for a while. They presented too many challenges. But overall, what I saw of the movie, on the front end, there was a lot of humor.
Yes.
And, it was funny humor, too. The scene where Thor got Stan Lee drunk on his Asgard
that might be Stan Lee's best cameo.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
He was you'll see this, but Stan Lee is wearing a veteran's cap. He's playing an old veteran at a bar, and Thor's drinking some sort of liquor in a little flask that he says is from Asgard. And this alcohol is not meant for mortals. And the guys basically took that as challenge accepted. So Stan Lee asks for some, and the next thing you know, he's being carried out of the bar.
Yeah, it just says Excelsior.
Yeah. It was funny.
Yeah.
The constant discussion of Captain America's bad language was really funny. And the constant trying to lift Thor's hammer was pretty funny. However, I don't know how I feel about this next nexus that they're creating, for the next phase of the Avengers franchise.
Okay.
I like them all as peripheral characters, and I'm referring to Falcon, right? Is that his name?
Yeah, Falcon.
Falcon. I'm referring to. I never got the girl that spits the red. Is that Scarlet Witch?
That's the Scarlet Witch.
Okay, so her, and then War Machine was in this one. He was no longer the Iron Patriot.
Right.
So that was cool to see.
Yes.
I liked seeing War Machine. But these are all characters that I would have considered, secondary compared to Captain America, Hulk, and so like whatever happens in the next movie leads me to believe that there's going to be a filtering out of some of those original Avengers. Isn't that the plan?
That's been discussed because a lot of them are basically only signed on through Avengers 3.
And Chris Evans has stated he wants to direct. Like he doesn't want to continue
He
to
said
act.
he wants to take a break or, direct, kind of get out of acting for a while once his Marvel contract is up. And Avengers 3 is also the last thing that they have Robert Downey Jr. signed for.
Yeah.
So there's a lot up in the air after Avengers 3, which is interesting because they're filming 3 and 4 together.
Oh, really?
So the talk is they're going to see something happen in 3 that's going to lead to a completely different team for 4.
Yeah, well, because Ant-Man is showing up on the scene.
Yes. Spider-Man
will be introduced probably into the third film.
They're actually saying Spider-Man will show up in the next Captain America.
Okay. That's really cool. That's fun to think about. And then at the end of the Avengers Age of Ultron, they show Thanos.
Yes.
Putting on his gloves. So it leads you to believe that the Guardians of the Galaxy should be showing up also around that time.
The only one they've mentioned specifically showing up is Drax, which was Batista's character. Certainly that would open up the door for more of them to follow.
I would think so. I would think they'd all come together. I mean, they traveled together, and if you ever watch the cartoons, anytime the Guardians show up, they're all together, and they're usually just kind of passing by kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll say this: the direction it seems like they're going, normally you don't say this about a superhero movie, but the direction they're going, they can't have too many. It's really only going to make it that much better because they're going to be, in Captain America 3, they're actually calling it Civil War. They're splitting up and forming sides.
Right.
So,
yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they do it. I think right now I'm having a hard time putting together in my head what's going to be what because, I want all those characters to come together, but I also know how these contracts are working out and everything. And I just don't know if an Avengers movie where the Avengers are, War Machine, Falcon, Ant-Man, the Guardians of the Galaxy, and the Scarlet Witch is going to pack the same punch as it does with Robert Downey Jr. in the mix.
Right, I understand that. But, there's also talk of who might replace Captain America when Chris Evans is done.
Right.
Well, because in the comics currently, it's actually Falcon as Captain America.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, and he was really popular from, the Winter Soldier. He really won people over.
Yeah.
So that's one direction they could go. And then also in the comics at one point, Bucky filled in for Captain America.
Bucky?
Yeah.
Bucky.
His little sidekick.
Okay.
And he becomes the Winter Soldier.
Okay, yeah.
And that actor has actually said he's under contract for 9 movies.
Oh.
So a lot of people are thinking, he could 3 Captain America movies as Bucky, 3 movies as Captain America, and then 3 Avengers movies as Captain America. So a lot of people are thinking they may go that direction. But
well, James Spader did a fantastic job.
I really only have one criticism of the movie, and I have to even admit I can understand why they did it this way.
Okay.
I didn't like the sarcasm that Ultron had. To me, when you're a villainous robot, you shouldn't be cracking jokes.
Right. It should be more robotic.
Yeah.
More literal. Everything is binary.
But at the same time, I understand that's who James Spader is.
Yeah.
And he's playing a part written by Joss Whedon, so that's what's going to show up.
Right.
And even when you factor in how Ultron is created, it's a Tony Stark creation who kind of has the same AI as Jarvis, who has a lot of sarcasm to him. I kind of get it. It wasn't really for me. But.
Well, and then the Vision shows up, and that's Jarvis. And I wasn't crazy about the look. What do you think?
It was fairly accurate though to the comics.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Vision in the comics. I'm not familiar with that character. So to me, it was just this brand new character that came out of nowhere, and he looked, in comparison to the other characters, he looked very X-Men-ish,
Yeah, I can see that.
Looked like the Archangel or something. So that's kind of the quick synopsis of the Avengers. We have other topics, and we're going to run out of time, so we need to breeze on through. But today we're going to talk about the 7 strangest religions that are out there, and we didn't want to go through and make fun of main religions that people practice a lot in the United States, such as whether it be Christianity or Islam or Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, whatever. We wanted to leave those alone. Those are mainstream enough. We're not going to be that guy, but there are some peripheral religions out there that are a little kooky, that are a little zany, and I think we're well within our rights to joke about them as much as we want. So, on this list of weird religions, do you have any suspicions of what we might come across, Jason?
Well, I have read the article, and I'll say this.
Okay.
The very first one it mentioned kind of brought me on board here.
It brought you on board?
Yeah, because, I was kind of hesitant. It's like, well, I don't want to make fun of someone's faith. But then when you mentioned this, I was like, okay, yeah, this is fair game.
It is kind of a religion.
It is, yeah.
So let's just put it out there. Jediism, the Jedi religion. It says, little did George Lucas realize what he was starting with his Star Wars movies. He set in motion a religious movement that has inspired generations of fake lightsaber-waving, nylon cloak-wearing warrior nerds. Adherents, or real-world Jedis, believe the Force actually exists. This is from MatadorNetwork.com. So, they believe that the Force really exists. It is with all of us. There is a dark side and a good side of the Force. Is it good side? What is it? What's the opposite?
I believe it's the light side.
The light side? Okay. I thought that would sound too hokey, but I guess good side does too. Have you ever come across one of these Jedi believers?
This is actually the first I've ever heard of people actually trying to practice, any sort of Jedi faith.
I wonder if there's a Jedi church locally.
I don't know.
Part of me thinks I should belong to this Jedi church because, I'll tell you, something that I've done since I was a child, and I still, to this day, as a 30-year-old man, do this. When I walk into a supermarket, they have the electric doors that open when you hit the sensor on the pad. I will always subtly wave my hand in front of me as I'm walking through, and when the door opens, like there's a part of me that smiles and says, I did that with my Jedi powers.
I actually do that when I'm alone on an elevator, and it opens up. And
you do it?
Kind of wave my hand in front.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, so, little did you know, we have a disposition to be Jedis.
Yeah.
We could totally join that church.
We may have to look into this.
Secondly, there's the Church of Ed Wood. It says, Ed Wood is famously known in Hollywood as one of the worst, if not the worst, directors of all time. And it refers you to Showgirls as one of his films, which was terrible.
Oh, I actually thought it was, I don't want to correct you, but I think it was saying that the director of Showgirls is now off the hook because Ed Wood was so bad.
Oh, you're right. That's what it does say. I saw Showgirls in italics.
Yeah, because Ed Wood was long before that.
Well, what's funny about that is if they're saying that Showgirls is off the hook because this guy was so bad, then this guy must really be bad.
Yeah, because he directed a cult classic called Plan 9 from Outer Space, which, if you remember an episode in the early days of Seinfeld, they were going to see a movie to make fun of it when they were stuck in the Chinese restaurant, actually. That's what they were going to see.
It was like Rochelle or something? Was that?
No, they were going to... That was a different one, but when they were stuck in the Chinese restaurant, they were actually going to see Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Oh, okay. So the Church of Ed Wood, it's interesting that they would create a religion based off of a really, really, really bad director.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's probably a group of people who set the bar really low, like low expectations. And
what was interesting is I think the article actually referred to it as a punk libertarian religion.
Oh, all right. So for all you weird Libertarians fans out there, maybe check into the Church of Ed Wood. You might no longer be agnostic.
Yeah.
you might have found your home. Number 3 is the, tell me if I'm pronouncing this right, Aetherius Society?
That's how I read it.
Okay. It says, what do you do if you're stuck as a cab driver but also have a passion for yoga? The answer is obvious. You start your own religion. On an eventful day in 1954, George King was sitting alone in his London apartment when suddenly, out of the blue, Alf, well, not really Alf, but Aetherius shouted, "Prepare yourself. You are to become the voice of interplanetary parliament." And I think that's all we need to read about that one.
Yeah, you don't need to go any farther.
Interplanetary parliament.
Who hasn't thought about creating a religion when they're stuck in the back of a cab?
Thinking about yoga, among other things.
Yeah,
But it says they believe Jesus, Buddha, and Krishna are, in fact, aliens. And one of their claims to fame is that aliens alerted them to the imminent Chernobyl disaster a good 4 hours before it melted down. Who can make that kind of thing up?
4 whole hours.
It's like seeing the iceberg 2 minutes before it hit it. Next, Raelism. I think I'm pronouncing that.
Yeah, we've actually discussed these guys before.
Have we?
Yeah, these were the ones that they were trying to get some land from Canada to build like an embassy for the aliens to come down.
Yeah. So go back to the CAP archive. We won't talk about that one. Happy Science Religion is the next one. That just has a fun name.
Yeah.
Happy Science Religion. You just picture those Neil deGrasse Tyson memes that float around on the internet. It says, you decide to try your hand at law, doesn't work. You try your hand at finance, doesn't work. You take some classes at your local community college, awaken a hidden part of your consciousness from the ninth dimension of the spirit world, and poof, your next logical step is obvious. You start your own religion. That's the story of, let's see if I can pronounce this name correctly, Ryuho Akawa and the happy science religion, which is apparently big in Japan. It says he believes his mission is to bring happiness to all humanity, which is nice of him. He also believes to be the incarnation of the supreme spiritual being El Cantare, not to be confused with the 2007 Mark Anthony J-Lo movie El Cantante. And this guy has apparently got some best-selling books, and he's got some hit movies. And, he says that they were channeled through him by the spirits of Muhammad, Buddha, Jesus, and Confucius. I'm not really seeing what they believe in this article is the only thing. It's basically all centered around this one guy. So it just sounds like a cult, and I can't even tell how many people have signed up for this. Have you seen anything different?
No, I haven't.
Okay. What do you think about the Happy Science Church?
Well, when I was in school, science never made me happy, so...
Yeah. Bill Nye, the Science Guy, never made you happy growing up?
I never really got into it.
Okay. Did you ever try putting Mentos in a 2-liter of Coca-Cola?
I did do that once.
Okay. How'd that make you feel?
I actually got a little frustrated because as I was doing it, for whatever reason, some idiot came along and tried to put the cap back on to see if the whole thing would explode. And it just kind of ruined the whole thing. But what I will say this, what did make it entertaining was after that was over, my brother actually drank part of the Diet Coke.
The next religion on the list is Panawave. Not sure what that is, so we'll check this out. It says, I'm sure we've all at some point worried that our cell phones might be frying our brains. Naturally, somebody just had to take things a little too far. Meet Yuko Chino. She started a Panawave as a religion that includes a bit of Buddhism, a dash of Christianity, and a pinch of New Age. It's like a designer religion, man. You just kind of add what you like from different influences and here and there. And one of her pet causes is raising awareness of the dangers of electromagnetic waves, which she claims cause climate change and other environmental destruction. So now we have tech is bad for the environment.
Yes.
Steve Jobs, you and Al Gore pretty much are responsible for global warming, according to this church. It says, okay, it's a little out there, but I can see why there might be some concern. Here's where they take things too far, because they didn't already. They decide that the whole phenomenon is, in fact, a communist plot to bombard them with EM waves as a way to kill their leader, Chino. So not only are they worried about tech being bad for individuals and being bad for the environment, but it's actually a grand conspiracy that was just meant to kill their leader. Yeah.
It mentioned that, they wore white clothing and drove around in white vans because somehow that gave them protection from all the electromagnetic waves or whatever. And I guess white coats might be appropriate, but
this reminds me of the tinfoil hat libertarian.
Yeah,
that some people will throw in your face when you tell them you believe like a libertarian believes. So number 7 is the Prince Philip movement, which, I mean, what's in a name? That tells you right there, like, kind of what it's about. But it says, you might presume that a man known as Britain's longest-serving consort to Queen Elizabeth would have little value to society, except, of course, to the Queen during her cold and foggy nights. But guess again, our man Philip is a god in the South Pacific. So he goes from prince to god.
Yeah.
What do you think? Maybe we can make our officials a god? Should we start the Church of Obama and upset some conservatives? Or, maybe the Church of Palin and upset some liberals? It could be fun. We could have a church of just about anything.
Yeah.
If you could start a church of any kind, what would your focus be?
I used to joke that I was going to form a napostolic church because, naps are heavenly.
Yeah? So the whole thing would just be taking naps?
Yeah.
Communally?
Yeah,
People would show up on Sunday mornings?
Or privately, however you want to worship.
Yeah. Well, see, that would be really good for me. Because I always find that, church is fine. I like hearing the messages, but I don't like getting out of bed on Sunday mornings, or really any other morning for that matter.
Right.
And since I'm forced to do it in order to pay my bills Monday through Friday, On Saturday and Sunday, there's just no way. So I've been downloading podcasts of my church's messages when they become available and just listening to it on my free time.
There you go.
And then not going to church on the weekends for a while now. So yeah, the Apostolic Church sounds nice. That's, I could sleep in and still be doing my duty.
And then my dad always joked that people should start a faith called Presbyterian for those that believe that Elvis is actually God.
Yeah. You could do the same thing for Tupac. Be like, he's still alive, so we could start, the cult of the Tupac and Biggieism.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I was trying to come up with a clever name for that, but it wasn't working out so well. If I could start any religion, and it would be anything, I would probably just shoot for something a little bit more dictatorial, It would be the Church of Jobubu. And I would pretty much be what Kim Jong-un and the Un dynasty have been to North Korea. I wouldn't starve people.
Mm-hmm.
I would, everybody could have whatever they have now, except they would have to do whatever I say. It would be the only thing. And in as an incentive to do whatever I say, they would be shown favor in eternity. What do you think? Is it who's coming with me, man?
Good work if you can get it.
I don't think it'll work. I don't think it's well thought out. But the cap might be a good starting point for a religion too. You think we can have a cap religion?
We could try it.
Who do you think's gonna? Do you think Tom McDonald would follow us?
He might.
Who else? We have to have at least 3 people that would join us. We could drink some Cap Kool-Aid. Move out to Cap Town. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
this is just not funny. Okay, so one of the other odd religions that are obviously in the peripheral, and there was just a big documentary on HBO called "Going Clear" about the Church of Scientology. And Scientology is obviously another odd religion that's out there. A lot of people have questions about it. There's been a lot of efforts to bring transparency to it over the last few years. A lot of celebrities that have spoken out about it. And you found an article that kind of relates to that. So why don't you share that with us?
Yeah, this article actually isn't as recent as I thought, because it does mention that this was discussed in the Going Clear documentary. But basically it has to do with the divorce of Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman and the impact that Scientology may have had on that. And basically, it says the film suggests that the Church of Scientology intimidated Tom into breaking up with Nicole. And before leaving the church in 2004, Marty Rathbun, who was the second highest ranking official there, told Gibney that Scientology head David Miscavige was suspicious of Nicole because her father was a prominent psychologist. Scientologists apparently aren't too keen on the practice of psychology.
They strongly dislike them and medications and whatever that they would provide.
Yeah, and it says that put Nicole on a, quote, potential trouble source list. That is, it's a list for those who are in some way connected to and being adversely affected by a suppressive person.
An SP in Scientology speak.
Yeah, and it goes on to say that they actually... Tom suggested that they tap his phones so they could kind of spy on everything that was going on, which that doesn't seem like a healthy practice.
It doesn't, but if you look into that church, there's all sorts of crazy suspicions and stuff with the people who are in it, because it's taken so seriously. You have essentially a caseworker when you join that church who works with you through all of your different from level 1 to your preceding levels after that. And in the event that something happens where you are in danger of being near a suppressive person, then you have to work through it with your caseworker, and they have to find a way. I guess it would be the equivalent of moving beads on a rosary or paying some sort of penance and confession or something like that. You confess it to the caseworker, and then they tell you how you should proceed to remove that person from wherever you are, so that you don't have that stumbling block.
Yeah, it says that the church even tried to get their kids to turn against Nicole.
Their kids?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it says that the church even buys limousines and airplanes and things for Tom just to keep him happy. And
because they need that celebrity ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, is these celebrities, they're not treated like your typical Scientologist. If I was to join the church or you were to join the church, we're not going to get the same kind of love that a Tom Cruise or a John Travolta gets.
Right.
Because those are the guys that, if you keep them happy, they go out and they make the church look cool and like a viable option for other people, and that's how they make their money. L. Ron Hubbard, the guy who created it, his wife, according to the Going Clear documentary, basically said that he was writing all these books and he wasn't happy with the money that he was getting out of them. And he made the comment that the only way to really make money and make a profit is to turn something into a religion, because then you don't have the same tax obligations as a nonprofit that you would be put under elsewhere. So if you want to make money, make it a church. And that's where he began to formulate the Church of Scientology.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But look, man, we're out of time already.
That flew by.
It just flew by, yeah. And we're already 31 minutes in, so let's go ahead and tip the cap.
I'm going to tip my cap to Joss Whedon. He's directed the first two Avengers movies, kind of had a hand in the other Marvel projects going on. He's going to move on to other things, and the Russo brothers that directed The Winter Soldier are going to kind of take over.
Well, that's good. At least it's someone who did something well already.
Yeah, I just think he's did an outstanding job, and I wasn't sure he was the right guy when he was first announced, but, I was wrong, and well done, sir.
Yeah. Say real quick before I move on, superhero-wise, they released a picture of Batman this week. What did you think about that?
It was okay. I mean, it's just...
I don't know how I feel about the gray suit.
Yeah.
It's not as dark and menacing and intimidating, but otherwise looks fine. I just think it would look better in all black, but I know they're going for that, what is it, Frank Miller style. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to tip the cap to Elkhart County Sheriff Brad Rogers. And if you're not from Northwest Indiana, don't fret. One of our counties locally has a sheriff who is, for all the things that you hear about police brutality, bad cops and everything, this guy is genuinely a servant of the people and really takes his position seriously and is always doing the right thing. And it's just noticeable. You see it, and it trickles down, I feel, through his police department and throughout his jurisdiction. And you just know that a good leader really can make a difference. So I had an opportunity for We'reLibertarians.com to go out and interview him, and I'm tipping the cap to Brad Rogers and also encouraging you to go to We'reLibertarians.com and listen to my interview with him where we talk about Baltimore, the riots that recently took place, and then just the narrative that's building about, police brutality and, how should we continue to look at police as friends while all of this negative press is being pumped out into the media. So I would say go take a listen, and I would appreciate that. Leave your feedback, and also, as always, leave feedback on the CAP Twitter and Facebook at CAP Podcast. And Jason, anything else you want to plug before we wrap up?
I think we're good.
All right. And as always, for this episode of the Culture and Arts Podcast, we tip the cap to you.